right, so we're doing a deep dive today into the world of prompt engineering.
Prompt engineering.
Yeah, and I know it might sound kind of like intimidating, like something out of Star Trek.
All right.
It's actually way cooler
Yeah,
than it sounds.
It is.
So basically, prompt engineering, it's like learning to speak the language of AI.
Yes.
So you can give it instructions
Exactly.
to tools like ChatGPT to get some really awesome results.
That's a great way to put it.
So instead of just like asking ChatGPT, a simple question,
Yeah.
you're like crafting the questions in a way that unlocks its potential.
Yeah, you're being much more deliberate and specific about how you're interacting with it.
I like that, being deliberate. Okay, so today we're going like beyond the basics, right?
Yes.
And we're going to explore 2 techniques
Okay.
that are super powerful and can change how you interact with AI.
Definitely.
And those are knowledge gap identification.
It's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
But it's a good one.
Okay, and meta prompting.
Meta prompting, yeah.
Those sound intense.
They sound intense, but they're actually very intuitive.
Okay.
Once you kind of wrap your head around them.
So break them down for me.
Okay, so imagine you're researching something new, right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of you having to go through all this information and trying to figure out what's missing, you have this AI that can tell you exactly what you need to know more about.
Whoa.
That's knowledge gap identification.
Okay, so instead of giving me all the answers, it's telling me what answers I should be looking for.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Especially when you're dealing with a really complex topic.
Yeah, definitely think of it as I like to think of it as a research assistant.
Okay.
That can identify your blind spots.
Oh, nice.
And point you in the right direction.
I like that. That's cool.
Okay.
So how does that actually work?
So let's say you're working with ChatGPT. All right. And you give it a prompt. You say, analyze this topic for me and tell me where your knowledge is lacking.
Okay.
And it's not that ChatGPT is dumb or anything like that. It's just that even the most advanced AI has its limitations in terms of its knowledge base.
Yeah, it can't know everything.
Exactly.
So this is basically like recognizing those limits.
Yeah.
And then using that to push past them.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. So give me an example. Like if I was researching, let's say, the environmental impact of electric vehicles.
Okay.
How would I use knowledge gap identification?
Okay, so you could say to ChatGPT, analyze the environmental impact of electric vehicles.
Okay.
And then it will go through its knowledge base. And it might say something like, further research is needed on the long-term sustainability of sourcing materials for the batteries.
Okay.
Or you might need to look into the impact of different electricity generation methods.
Oh, so it's giving me like the next steps.
Exactly.
It's not just giving me a yes or no answer.
It's not just a simple answer. It's much more nuanced than that.
It's giving me the nuances.
Exactly. It's giving you the nuance.
Okay, so it's actually helping me like to understand the issue better so I can make a better decision.
Exactly. That's the goal.
My mind is blown. That's good.
Okay, so what about technique number 2? Meta prompting.
Meta prompting.
You said it was intuitive, so let's see.
It is. So think of meta prompting as giving the AI the ability to critique itself.
What? It can critique itself.
Yes. So it's like having a built-in editor that helps you refine and improve the output.
Okay, hold on. An AI that critiques itself. How does that work?
So you're essentially instructing the AI to evaluate its own responses based on certain criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So you might tell it to check for clarity
or
accuracy or relevance, whatever's important to you.
So instead of just taking what the AI says as like the gospel, I can actually have it double check and make sure it's meeting my needs.
Yeah, you're moving beyond being a passive consumer of information.
Yeah.
And you're taking a more active role in shaping the quality of the information.
Yeah. I like that. Can you give me an example of how that might play out? Okay, so let's say the AI gives you this statement. Electric vehicles are better for the environment because they reduce emissions.
Okay. Seems pretty straightforward.
Right. But then you can use meta prompting and say, okay, evaluate that statement for me.
Okay.
And the AI might say something like, that statement lacks specificity.
Okay.
What does better for the environment even mean?
Yeah.
And it might say, it doesn't consider the environmental impact of battery production and disposal.
Oh,
so it's basically pointing out its own flaws and highlighting areas for improvement.
I love that. Okay, so I can then take that and use it to refine what I was originally doing.
Exactly. So you can go back and forth and shape the information until it meets your needs.
So it's almost like we're having like a debate.
Yes.
With a really smart computer.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, my mind is officially blown a second time.
It's 2 for 2.
Yes. Both of these techniques, knowledge gap identification and meta prompting, seem really powerful. I can already think of like a million ways I could use them in my own work.
Yeah.
But before we get ahead of ourselves,
right.
we need to like pump the brakes a little bit.
Yes.
And talk about some best practices.
That's a great idea.
For implementing them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because like any tool, you got to know how to use it right.
Exactly.
To get the best results.
You got it.
So we have all these tools. Mm-hmm. They're awesome.
They're powerful.
But like with any tool, we got to know how to use them, right?
Right. Exactly.
So what are some best practices we should keep in mind?
Well, let's start with knowledge gap identification.
Okay.
One of the most important things is being specific with your prompts.
Okay, so instead of just throwing like a giant topic at it,
yeah,
I got to be specific.
Like instead of saying analyze climate change, you might say analyze the impact of climate change on coastal communities in the next decade.
Okay.
That level of specificity is going to give you much more targeted and relevant insights.
So it's like narrowing it down so it can really hone in.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So the AI identifies the gaps, and then what do I do with them?
That's where your own curiosity and research skills come in.
Okay.
So think of the identified gaps as signposts.
Okay.
Pointing you to areas where you need to explore more.
I like that, like a treasure map.
Exactly.
Okay, but should I just blindly trust everything the AI tells me is a knowledge gap?
That's a great question. I mean, you should always be a little bit skeptical, like you would with any information source.
Right.
So always cross-reference what the AI is telling you with other reputable sources.
Gotcha. So knowledge gap identification is about being specific with prompts.
Uh-huh.
Use those gaps as a starting point.
Yes.
And double check.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about best practices for meta prompting?
So with meta prompting, clarity is key.
Okay.
You really want to be super clear about what aspect of the AI's output you want it to evaluate.
So do I want it to, like, check the clarity of the writing? Or?
Yeah, the accuracy of the facts.
The relevance to a certain topic or...
the creativity, all of that.
Okay.
You can tell it what's important to you.
Okay, so instead of just saying, evaluate this.
Right.
I should say, like, evaluate this paragraph for clarity and conciseness.
Exactly.
Or like, check these facts against these sources.
Exactly. You're giving the AI a set of guidelines to follow.
That makes a lot of sense. And then I take that feedback and do I just like say, okay, thanks, I'm done?
No. The real magic happens when you use that feedback to go back and refine your work.
Okay.
So it's like having this back and forth with an editor.
So it's like I'm collaborating with it.
Exactly.
To make the output even better.
Yes, it's this continuous improvement.
Like having a brainstorming partner who's also like a grammar expert.
Yeah, a fact checker.
A fact checker all in one.
All rolled into one.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
You mentioned that we could like combine meta prompting with other prompts.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How would that work?
So let's say you're writing a poem about climate change. You could first have the AI write the poem and then have it evaluate the poem for emotional impact.
Oh, wow.
And originality.
So you could really like...
you can layer these techniques...
go crazy with it.
To get amazing results.
I like that. My mind is blown.
3 for 3.
Yes. So both of these things are so cool.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how this changes the way we use AI.
It's not just about getting answers anymore.
It's about shaping those answers.
Right. It's about being much more intentional about how we use it.
Yeah. And controlling like the quality of those answers too.
Exactly.
Okay, this is amazing. But this also seems like a lot.
It is a lot.
You mentioned a blog post.
Oh, yeah.
That can help us.
Yeah, we've put together a blog post.
Awesome.
With tips and examples.
To help people get started.
Ready to use prompts.
Okay.
It dives deeper into these techniques.
Perfect.
Yeah, so we'll link to it in the show notes.
Great, because I'm sure our listeners are going to want to check that out. Before we move on, any final thoughts about knowledge gap identification and meta prompting?
Be curious.
Oh, yeah.
Experiment. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to get creative.
Yeah.
And the more you use these, the more you'll discover their potential.
It's like a journey.
It is a journey.
Keep learning.
Always learning.
So cool. Okay, I'm feeling inspired.
Good.
Let's go forth and prompt.
Yes.
Okay, so we've reached the end of our deep dive into prompt engineering.
It's been quite a journey.
It has, and we learned so much.
We did it.
Like these two techniques, knowledge gap identification and meta prompting.
Yeah, they can really change how you use AI.
Big time. So with knowledge gap identification, we can ask AI what it doesn't know.
It's amazing, right? Like pointing out the blind spots.
Totally. Like think about it. It's like having a research partner that can analyze all this information.
Yeah, and then point you to what's missing.
So you know where to look next.
Exactly.
And then meta prompting. It's like having an AI editor.
Like having someone double check your work.
Or like triple check.
Even better.
And it helps make sure that the information you get from AI is top-notch.
And it meets your needs.
Exactly. It's about taking control.
Yeah, you're not just passively consuming information anymore.
You're like actively shaping it.
Exactly.
And the best part is you don't need to be like a tech genius to use these techniques.
Nope, anyone can do it.
Which is amazing because it means anyone can use AI to its fullest potential.
And this is really just the beginning.
I know, it's kind of mind-blowing.
Prompt engineering is constantly evolving.
So many possibilities. Speaking of possibilities, we mentioned a blog post
Oh, yeah.
earlier that can help people.
Yeah, it's full of tips and examples.
To learn more about all this.
And ready to use prompts so you can start experimenting right away.
I love that. I'm sure our listeners will find it super helpful.
I hope so.
It's a great resource.
It is.
So make sure you check it out.
Definitely.
It'll help you dive even deeper into this fascinating world.
Yeah. Go explore, experiment, have fun.
That's what it's all about, right? This has been such an incredible deep dive.
I agree.
I feel like I've leveled up my AI skills.
That's the goal.
Big time. So to our listeners, keep diving deep into the world of prompt engineering.
You never know what you might discover.
And until next time, keep exploring the amazing world of AI.
See you then. See you.